Welcome to another Bandology interview. Bandology is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of What's Your Forte? Today I am interviewing the wonderful Ernesto Cervini. So, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you for asking.
All right. So my name is Kirsten and I am the events coordinator for Bandology, if you didn't already know. And I'm going to do a very general interview with this amazing drummer. So briefly, describe what you do, who you are, and all about yourself.
Sure. So my name's Ernesto Cervini and I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I've lived here for almost my whole life. I was in New York for 4 years as well, in New York City. And I'm a professional drummer. I'm also a teacher. I teach at the University of Toronto, and I was conducting a big band there as well. And I kind of grew up in music. I've been doing music my whole life. I started piano lessons when I was about 5, and I played band in elementary school and in high school. I did all the music things, and then So I've been playing music for a long time now.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you mentioned you picked up the piano at a pretty young age, and you are a professional drummer. So I wanted to ask, when you started to pick that up, what got your interest into it?
Yeah, I think boys and drums. I think I always wanted to play drums because it just seems cool and it's fun to hit stuff. I believe I started when I was about 8 or 9. I think. Maybe grade 4 or 5. So maybe 10. And I also played the clarinet, or play the clarinet. And I believe I started that shortly after. I started the drums and I loved it right away. And even though I was working really hard at the piano and the clarinet simultaneously, I always kind of knew that the drums were where I just felt at home at the drum set. It's
great that you kind of felt that connection immediately. Not many people get to do that on their first few tries. So that's great. What kind of music did you start out playing? What was your favorite thing to do?
Well, I started off playing rock and roll. My teacher taught me some Led Zeppelin tunes. And so I would play those over and over and over and over again. They were very hard when I was young, for sure. But I really liked that. And, I wanted to play kind of the music that I was listening to on the radio. And then eventually I started playing in a big band. So I started playing jazz drums. And then once I started doing that, I got really into it. And I started, checking out big band music and then other types of jazz. And then it kind of just progressed from there.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. So you weren't really introduced to jazz until way later.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that much later, to be honest. I was probably maybe 13 or 14.
No, okay.
So I played rock drums for a year or two, and then I started playing simple big band charts, and then I never really started listening to jazz until there was a little bit of stuff that I listened to at the end of grade school, but then it was really in high school. I started listening to it more, and then I started really enjoying it in university.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, what kind of drew you to pursue music or the drums as a career?
I kind of always knew I would do it. I don't know if it was. I grew up in a musical family. Both my sisters are also musicians. My mom runs a music school. So I was just around music constantly. And I just loved performing. I think I played in a big band that it used to be called the Etobicoke Youth Orchestra. And then it turned into the Etobicoke Jazz Youth Orchestra. And now it's called the Toronto All-Star Big Band. And I started playing in that when I was really young. And I just loved performing. I just loved playing in front of people. And so, again, it was something I was very comfortable doing. And I just kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do.
That's great. Yeah. Performing is a lot of fun. And it's also the energy is so much different than what you would expect. So while you were on, this journey on your music career, who were kind of your major influences or mentors, anyone you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I studied with some great teachers at the Royal Conservatory of Music for my classical training. And then also on the jazz drums, I studied with some great drummers in Toronto. My first real jazz teacher was a guy named Barry Romberg, who still lives and plays in Toronto. And then after that, I studied with Barry Elms, who was teaching at U of T at the time. And then after that, he took over the program at York University. But I'd studied with him when I was still in high school, and he was great because he was just really focused, and he had like a real kind of routine about what he wanted you to do and how you would progress through this kind of lesson plan that he came up with. And it was the kind of thing I needed, because I was the kind of kid that, like, if I could get away with something, I absolutely would. So he kind of kept me focused, and he made sure I didn't get away with anything. So I studied with him for, I don't know, like a year and a half before university. And then when I got to university, I studied with him for another 2 years. So he was probably my biggest influence as a young drummer. And then after that, I had a bunch of other great teachers here and in New York City. There's so many drummers who I love listening to and checking out. Probably my favorites are a drummer named Bill Stewart, and there's another drummer named Matt Wilson, and Eric Harland. I would say those three are probably my favorite, but there's so many great musicians. So it's great to, check everybody out.
Yeah, totally. And I'm pretty sure there's endless influences that keep in mind. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah. You've had a pretty successful career, including a Juno Award. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and maybe other career highlights that you can think of?
Sure. The Juno Award was pretty awesome. It was kind of a funny situation because I won it in 2020, and the Junos were canceled the day before. The Junos were supposed to happen in March of 2020. So we had our flights booked and our hotels booked, and we were ready to go. And we were leaving on whatever the Friday, March, whatever it was. And then at noon that day, our flight was like 6 p.m. And at noon, we found out that the Junos were canceled and the whole world was shutting down, basically. So it was kind of it was an interesting situation. So the Junos got postponed, and they moved them to the end of June. And so I was at home. They just did them online. They weren't even, I don't even think they were televised. They just did them online. And so I was at home in my tuxedo, watching on my computer. And but it was cool because I was supposed to go to the Junos with my wife and my sister and her husband and my sister-in-law and her husband. And we were all excited to go to this together. It was going to be really great. So unbeknownst to me, my wife invited them all over on the night that they were going to do the Junos. And she told them to wear their fancy clothes as if we were going. So they showed up, and then she was like, we should just put on our stuff. It'll be nice. Like, put on your tuxedo and I'll put on my dress and we'll pretend, like we were going to the Junos. So then we did that. And then they came in and they're all wearing their beautiful, gowns and tuxedos. So it was really special. And I honestly didn't expect to win. There was some really, really great musicians in the same category. And obviously I was thrilled. But then it was funny because then we couldn't perform for like another year and a half or something. So the timing was very strange, but that was a humongous thrill. Other highlights, I think anytime I get to play in front of people, it's a pretty great opportunity. Playing the jazz festivals across Canada has been really, really great. I just did that. But then I've played a bunch of them in the past as well. So, playing at the Montreal Festival, which is one of the biggest in the world, is amazing. And I played at the Ottawa Festival and we opened up for Earth, Wind and Fire. So that was really cool. I know, it was amazing. And then we went out into the audience and sang and danced and had a great time. So we've had some really great opportunities as Canadian musicians to do some of these really cool things.
Yeah, no, totally. It sounds like you've had so many great experiences along the way. It's really unfortunate that, the Junos had to be canceled right before. But I guess it's just how life is. Everything stopped for everyone.
I mean, everybody has a story about that time because it sucked for everybody. So, it's kind of one of those things where it would have been amazing to be there in person. I can't imagine, because I did get to go to the Junos once before. I didn't win, but I got to go and it was a lot of fun. And I can't imagine what it would have been like to win, but that's okay. We'll just, I'm going to keep making music. So
yeah,
we'll keep submitting and see what happens.
You have like that lovely memory of your wife inviting everyone over, and
it was great.
Yeah. Sounds great. Sounds like a very beloved memory.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were a teacher, and I just wanted to ask, this is something that we ask everyone, why you think music education is important, especially to you.
I think it's so important. There's a lot of studies that show that studying music can really help just with brain development and, it helps. I mean, the easy way to put it is music makes you smarter. That's what they say. And I'm not a scientist. But I think, and not only that, but I think music is very enriching to your everyday life. And I think if you understand it, just to a certain degree, it becomes even that much more enriching. And I think, being able to play in a group is, it's kind of the same feeling as being on a good team. It's about teamwork. It's about working together. It's about finding your place within a group of people. It's also about, you learn about, like being responsible, and you learn about some discipline, and, it's super fun to perform. So there's this really great feeling that can come from it. So I just think there's so many positives, and whether you learn music to then pursue it in your career, or whether you learn music just as a hobby, I don't think, I don't really think one's better than the other. I think they're all super important. And I think, just getting that education, I don't know. I think it's so important. I think it's vital.
Yeah, totally. We talk about the long-term value of music education, and we also talk about all those transferable skills, just like, what you said about being responsible and just, being able to be disciplined, all that stuff. You learn that from music, but it carries on throughout your life too. So.
Yeah. And you can apply it to everything, you can apply it to so many things. And it's such a transferable skill. And it's something that it's a lot harder. It can be harder to get once you're an adult, just to find the time to learn something new. And music, like, to get the skills on a new instrument, it can take a while. And I feel like once you're an adult, it can be harder to find that time. Whereas when you're a kid, it just becomes part of what you do. And it can be so fulfilling, just so fulfilling.
Yeah. So many benefits to it. Like, as, someone who grew up around music, I totally understand all the sides to it. So it's just, it's really important to everyone. Yeah. Okay. So you're obviously a very well-established musician. You're very successful. And I bet a lot of people look up to you. So I just wanted to, ask for everyone out there what your advice is to young musicians who kind of want to be like you.
That's a great question. I would say a couple things. The most important thing you can do is play your instrument every day. If you really want to get better at it. I think, and it doesn't have to be for 3 hours every day. I think if you spend a little bit of time on your instrument every single day, you will get better, because doing 3 hours once a week is not nearly as effective as doing 20 minutes every day. Even though you end up doing less, it's way more effective because you're just doing it constantly. And when you're not on your instrument, your brain is still working on it. So I'd say that's number one, is just play every day. Don't get discouraged if you only have a half an hour or you only have 5 minutes. Fine, whatever. Just play. And don't worry about if you know your buddy practices an hour and a half every day and you only do 45 minutes or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And then the other thing is, don't try not to compare yourself to anyone else. Just play and have fun. And because I mean that happens more and more as we get older, as you start to look at your peers and who's better and who's worse and where do I rank, and I mean music's not about that. You know, that's even the thing with the Junos, is that at the end of the day, it's like it's wonderful and it's an honor, but it's also like just a group of however many people, that was their opinion on what deserved the award that year. But music isn't really something that you can compete on. It's not like sports where you can just be faster than someone else. It's about everyone has their own opinion and on what they like and what they love, and when it comes to music. So, you know, so I guess that would be the other thing is don't ever put down other people's musical opinions, because that's the beauty of music, is something that you hear and I hear at the exact same time. You might think is beautiful and I might think it's garbage, and we're both right, but just for ourselves, you know? So I think that's what that would be my biggest advice. Play every day. Don't compare yourself to other people, and don't judge other people's opinions about music, and don't be afraid to have your own opinion about music.
Yeah, totally. Art, music is an art form. So yeah, it really can't be measured anything. No. So you're totally right about all of that. And I also think the practicing part, where it's repetition, right? It's not about how long you practice. It's about smart practice and how you can do it repetitively and, be good at it. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. So that's really important. And I'm glad you mentioned all of those things. Yeah. Okay, great. So you have your own little band, and you've probably played in many bands, but you mentioned that you lead the Heart House Jazz Ensemble. So how is it like, the little contrast between, playing in a band and then directing it?
I love it. I've worked leading a big band. I started leading a big band when I was in university. So that was a long time ago. So I've done it on and off for about 20 years. And because I grew up playing in big bands, I love it. I love being in front of a band. I really enjoy teaching, and I really enjoy sharing my knowledge with young musicians. It's obviously different because I don't get to play. And at the end of the day, that's still my favorite thing to do. So at any point when I'm conducting a band, I'd rather be the drummer than the conductor. But that's okay. I really enjoy just being able to help people understand music, and helping people get beyond just the notes and the rhythms and getting to the real meat and potatoes of music, like understanding the emotion behind it, or like how to really sound good as a section, and how to really make it swing really hard if that's what you want. Or I really enjoy kind of helping people get to that point, because then the payoff is amazing. Because once you hear a band that you've been working with and suddenly they can play this thing and it sounds really great, you see the pride that they have in the music they just made, and it's just so fulfilling. I said that word already. I guess music is very fulfilling.
Yeah, it's a great word to use, honestly. What's like one major thing you kind of learned directing a band that you kind of taken into your own playing?
I don't know if I can pinpoint one thing, but I will say that when I'm conducting or teaching private lessons for that matter, it's constantly reaffirming all the things that I should be doing. So if I get into bad habits and then I'm talking to my own students about, you should practice like this, or you should do this, or even what I told you about, you should play every day, even if it's only for 5 minutes. Sometimes I forget that and I'll go, I only have 15 minutes. I guess I just won't practice today. And it's like, well, or you could practice for 15 minutes. It'd be great. So I find that teaching, it really helps to just reinforce all that stuff, to remind me, that, in a big band, like dynamics and articulations are what really bring the music alive. And so, yeah, I would say that just the act of doing that is so helpful for just kind of reinforcing everything.
I totally understand that. I taught a little bit of music myself, just to some younger kids, how to read notes and all that stuff. And I tell them things that I hear my teacher telling me, and I'm like, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It brings it full circle. It's kind of cool. But then it also reminds you, because there's definitely been stuff that I've told my students where they would leave and I go, oh, I need to do all that stuff. That was really good advice. I should really listen to me. So sometimes it's good. It kind of forces me to go back and take a look at what I'm doing and make sure that I'm taking all the advice that I'm giving.
Yeah. Kind of on the topic of, advice and looking back, what is kind of one thing that you wish you knew before, you kind of started this career?
I think it's the basically the three things that I would give as advice is like, don't worry about how much you do every day. Just do some every day. And don't compare yourself to other people, because it's going to be fine. Just focus on what you're doing. And it's okay to have an opinion. And I specifically, and some of that stuff you just need to grow into. But I specifically remember, being in school and having people not like the same music I liked and being afraid to say something about it. It's just being afraid to be different. And, it took a while for me to just be okay to be like, oh yeah, I don't really like that. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not for me. And maybe it's also because the people I'm talking to are mature enough that they're not going to be like, oh, you're stupid, and so maybe it would have been harder when I was younger. But I think that's the stuff I wish I had known, or even if I did know it, I wish I could have
internalized.
Yeah, I wish I could have acted on it, because I think even if someone told me that, I'm sure people did. And I was like, oh, okay. But it didn't it didn't really sink in.
Yeah.
And that's also part of just maturing and growing up and becoming more confident in your own skin and, being more confident in who you are. And I think we all get there slowly but surely.
Yeah. So did you grow up in a family of musicians, or were you the only one?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family of musicians. I mean, my parents don't play, but my mom runs a music school. So we were there all the time. And my oldest sister, Amy, is a jazz singer and she lives in New York City. So she went to university for jazz saxophone, actually, and then switched over to a voice towards the end of her degree. And then she moved to New York and she's been singing there ever since. And then my other sister, Marisa, she's a music teacher in the Toronto School Board. And she went to U of T for classical flute and got her flute performance degree. And then she went to Teachers College, and she's been a band teacher since then. So all three of us are all in music, and my wife is a music teacher as well. So I'm surrounded by musicians.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so obviously you're very successful, but you must have had a lot of challenges along your way. What is kind of something, maybe if you want to share your biggest challenge and what you kind of learned from it and how it helped you grow?
I think the biggest challenge for me was and this, I think the hardest thing for me was learning how to practice and learning how to be disciplined with music. When I was young, I was forced to practice. So I had to practice a lot. I did 4.5 hours a day for a lot of years, not by choice at all, but I had to do it. And I'm really glad that I didn't hate music after that. I still love doing it, but I hated practicing so much. So when I didn't have to practice anymore, I stopped. I just didn't want to. And it took me a long time to figure out how to love practicing again. And it was good because through learning that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how I work. What do I respond really well to? What do I not respond well to? A big part of this whole journey is just figuring yourself out. And that's a big part of what happens, when you're in your early 20s, when you finish high school and you go to university, and then when you finish university or college or whatever you choose to do, it's a huge growing up period. And so that was when I kind of figured out, how am I going to have a relationship with practicing that I can actually enjoy it. And it took a while. I forced myself to do it for a while, but it was just hard and I hated it. I still didn't really enjoy it. I just did it because I knew I had to if I wanted to be good. And then eventually I kind of figured out a way, and now I feel anxious if I haven't practiced in a while, and I miss it, which is a wonderful feeling. Cause I'm like, oh, okay, I finally did it, but it took a long time. But I would say that was my biggest challenge. Was just, having that having that push behind me removed, and then trying to be able to develop it myself. Like, okay, I need to want to do this, and I do want to do this. So I have to figure out how to find that passion for it. And it was hard, but it was very, very, very fulfilling.
Yes. Yes, totally. A bunch of kids right now, they're forced to practice, and it's not until they get that, force taken away from them that they realize, oh, this is something that I need to be doing if I want to, continue.
Yeah, exactly. And, hopefully you get to the point where you want to get better. So then, and the only way to get better is to practice. And again, it doesn't have to be torture. It can just be, a little bit every day.
No clear-cut rules or anything. It's just, on your own terms and what you think works best for you, which is really important. They don't really tell you that.
No. And it's so much is done by practicing to a clock. And I think that's the easy way to do it. And it's something that's easy for parents to understand, because they just say to the teacher, how much should they be practicing? Oh, they should do about 30 minutes a day. Okay. And then you put on a timer and you go out and practice for 30 minutes. But, I'm not criticizing parents or teachers for doing that. It's easier for me. I have 2 children and I make them practice every day. But I am able to, we never practice to a clock. We just practice. I just say, just get a little better. And then, I'm obviously listening while they're doing it. And then they'll say they're done. I'm like, okay, did that get better though? Is it better now? And, I don't know. And I think it's working.
Yeah. It's great that you experienced all this beforehand, just so that you can give all of this, knowledge to your kids and be able to help them in the right direction, especially in terms of practicing and not hating music because you have to practice.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, great. It was so great to hear from you. So what we're going to do right now is the fast five. So these are rapid fire questions, and you're just going to answer them at the top of your head. Are you ready?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. What is your favorite movie soundtrack?
Ooh, movie soundtrack. Well, the first one that came to mind is Jurassic Park, so I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, instrument that you wish you played.
Probably the cello.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I bet you play a lot of instruments already, but yeah, cello's a great one.
I definitely cannot play any string instruments, so there you go.
Perfect. Okay, so what's your hidden talent?
I also, well, I won't do anything musical. I play a bunch of instruments, but I also I play a lot of ultimate frisbee.
Oh.
So that is my big hobby, and I have a pretty good throw. I have a pretty good flick.
Wow, yeah. Ultimate frisbee is so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what is your favorite concert that you've attended?
Ooh, there have been some good ones. Okay, well, maybe this is recency bias, but I would have to be between going to see Dave Matthews Band when I was a kid, and I was a diehard Dave Matthews Band fan, and I went to see them a bunch of times, and every time it just blew my mind. But then I also went to see Radiohead recently.
Oh my gosh!
And they played in Toronto, probably 2019, and they did 2 shows, and I went to both of them, and they played completely different sets. So it was like watching one big long concert. Like I think they repeated 2 songs over the 2 nights. So they played like 50 songs. It was insane. So I think, I've also seen some amazing jazz concerts. Those are just the ones that came to mind.
Yeah, no, totally. Especially the Radiohead one. That's insane. They have an amazing discography. So I can't imagine how amazing that experience is. So
it was so great. And
yeah.
I play in a Radiohead cover band, so I play this music all the time, and I'm really intimately familiar with it. So it was amazing to see them do it, and they hadn't been to Toronto in like 5 years, so it was very special.
Yeah, totally. Okay, last one. What is the last show that you binge watched?
I'm in the middle of watching Schitt's Creek for the second time, and I love it. It's great. CBC. Great Canadian content, great show.
Awesome. All right, great. So before we, finally finish things off, do you want to tell us about any exciting plans or projects coming up?
Sure. I do have an exciting project coming up. I have a new album coming out in October. The album's called Joy, and it's a whole bunch of music that I wrote based on this amazing detective novel series by a wonderful author named Louise Penny. She's a Canadian author, and she writes these detective novels that take place in the eastern townships of Quebec. And I just fell in love with the books. They're like bestsellers. They're published around the globe. And I just fell in love with the books, and I was really inspired to write a bunch of music that, to represent the characters or different themes or different places. So so I have this album coming out called Joy, and it's all music related to these books by Louise Penny and the town called the fictional town called Three Pines that most of the stories take place in.
That's awesome. That's art inspired by art, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So sorry, just a little side question. So in your previous albums, did you have similar themes like this, or is this the first time you ever attempted?
This is a first. Yeah, wow. This is a first for me. I've never really done an album that was all based on an overarching theme, and I've always wanted to do something like that. And I tried to manufacture some sort of inspiration for it, but it never had. It just always felt really forced and not natural or organic. And so and then this just kind of happened, and it was one of those things where I just love these books, and I was like halfway. I think she's written 17 now, I think 17 books. And she just wrote a book with Hillary Clinton. Yeah, it was really great. It's not part of the series, but it's just a standalone book. Yeah, I was about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the series, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I went back and read them all again, and now I'm reading them for the third time. So wow, it's been really cool. And I've been in contact with the author, which is amazing because I'm such a huge fan. And we're emailing each other, and it's oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah, that's
really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. That all sounds so great. I'm so excited to hear it, and I'll definitely check her out after this.
Yeah. Check her out, Louise Penny. The books are fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I'll even read it while listening to your new album. Maybe
there you go.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this interview and for joining me on this episode of What's Your Forte. Thank you everyone for sticking around, and hopefully you learned something about this wonderful musician. So yeah, take care. Any final words?
No, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
It was honestly my honor. So I will just end it over here, and I hope everyone has an amazing week. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, you can learn more about our organization at bandleader.ca, which features information about music education, advocacy and research, and our Play a Gig and Bandcamp programs. Follow us on social media for more videos, performance, and interviews on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.